I often would delete about 1/3 of all the videos I recorded due to audio not being recorded properly. I previously used a Zoom H6, which then was plugged in to a phone. Now, because I recorded locally on the phone, in this case a Galaxy S10, I had the option of either using USB-C and using the Zoom H6 as an interface, or also inserting via the audio jack and then using as a mono microphone. Both work with this here. You just, instead of you have an aux output here, which then you can insert basically into the microphone. Now the Zoom does sound very good. I did have an additional problem, which is that the fan, even though it's now also visible, not visible but audible, it did have an issue. And whenever this issue occurred, it basically turned the video, which the audio was recorded with, from above here. So basically in my line of audio, there was the fan noise, which was then recorded and which made it almost impossible to have proper audio. Now I still have the same notebook. Sometimes this fan noise seems to turn on and off. I also sent this already into repair and it was gone for 3 months, and I had to pay 450 euros to get a replacement because I needed to work in the meantime. And well, HP didn't repair it and it had the same issue with the fan. Now, in terms of the microphone, I found a solution. I eventually just decided to again invest into this here, which is recording videos mostly, and buy a Rode VideoMic Go 2. Initially, I got this because I wanted to have a proper camera setup. So if I had my Canon EOS M50, I wanted to finally have audio on the Canon EOS M50, which then would allow me to maybe record something like a small film project or something like this, or film a small documentary, and I would have finally a microphone. But then I realized that I could use this as a USB microphone. And because this is a directional microphone, which is why I bought it, I now realized that I could also have this here mounted up here and then kind of bypass the fan noise that is created here. Now, since this does have a slight microphone record on the side, it does sometimes pick it up. Maybe if I would turn it such that the pickup would be basically here and here, it would be less of an issue. But then, well, I could actually probably do this than just the USB-C connection, which is connecting this to my USB hub, which then goes in here into my HP Spectrum, would probably be sticking out a lot. Now, the Zoom has better audio, even if it is recording from above and directed at me with the internal capsule, which is currently not attached. But if this is directed at me, then I have directional sound and I do not have the room noise, which even though they still sound comparable, even though this blocks out lots of the sound. But this is also a very acceptable sound. It sounds kind of similar to how I am speaking right now onto basically so I have a Galaxy S10 here, and since I am kind of slightly behind it, I am very close proximity to the internal microphone, which allows this audio to be recorded kind of properly. Whenever I had this here, and then the connection failed in so many videos, then this was mostly due to a couple of reasons. One of them was that I had previously used this phone in a very intensive fashion and connected basically a charging case and I connected it again and again. And so the USB-C connection on this here does actually not work that properly, at least in terms of the audio transmission. I actually still kept this phone. I got a replacement phone, which is my second phone now, but I actually got this phone, because I wanted to have finally a phone which would not lose the audio on half of the videos. So I did use the USB-C because I thought that the audio balancing, so whether it would be clipping or not, for example, so the gain would be controlled by the USB to a certain extent. So I thought there would be a communication happening between those two devices compared to the otherwise analog, one could call this analog, maybe, if one had just inserted the output, the mono output into the internal, or not internal, but into the headphone jack, which the Galaxy S10 very gladly still has. And I'm every now and then using this, because every now and then I'm screen recording on this device, and then I need built-in audio, because if I want to screen record, I of course could have the screen mirrored, but that does still not work properly usually. So there is a lag, and the lag is just too heavy such that I cannot really use this properly. So what I had in order to control the phone was usually Anywhere 2S, which would have 3 settings, similar to the MX keys, which also have 3, not settings, but devices. So I have my 2 phones on 2 and 3, and my notebook on 1. The same would be true for the Anywhere 2S, which then would mean that I could control the phone with basically my normal setup here, which I now for hundreds of videos basically used. Because so I would use this here in order to start and stop the video on my Galaxy S10, and then it would be recorded locally on the Galaxy S10. And then I would have to transfer the files again and again and again. But currently I'm streaming the video to OBS Studio, which is then, I usually have it up here, which then also allows me to check myself without looking into this here. So if I look down here, my eyes usually don't look into the camera, and it looks like I'm looking slightly below the camera. It is kind of just weird. If I look into a different direction, then I can also sometimes access information. So sometimes I have a list of content ideas, which I pull up here, and then on the right I can control the image. And just being able to see the image and controlling the image, and also not having to look down on this very weird configuration where you have the camera on the right. So if you look here, it is just very weird in terms of how you look on the camera, but also how you look into the camera. And apart from screen recording on the Galaxy S10, which I now rarely do because the other thing is just already set up, this now allowed me, apart from every now and then I launch OBS Studio, and then it takes, again, the standard microphone, which sometimes this is not recorded because sometimes I have this plugged out due to maybe having been traveling or having been away with the notebook, and sometimes I have not plugged it in. And if I then start OBS, then it defaults back to the Windows microphones and does not take this, and I then have to manually set this up again, which is kind of a hassle, and it already cost me kind of hundreds of videos, I think, because, well, I again did not have audio. If I record music, I am sometimes using this. If I'm just playing a little bit of guitar here and there, then I can also use this, I think. But usually what I then use is either this microphone, so I record an acoustic guitar with this microphone, and then I have my loop station down here, and the loop station then outputs the audio, and I can also loop tracks. So basically, sometimes, or not basically, I can have things that repeat, and these things that repeat one calls loops, and they can run. So I can have 3 tracks running, and additionally I can overlay on this here, and then I also can play the 4th track, which then would be live. But currently it seems to be that something is not connected. This was not connected properly. And then I can record music on here, and this outputs again. So this on the mono, because this kind of makes things easier for me. This outputs to the Zoom H6, which then again inputs via the USB, because the Zoom H6 is an interface also, into OBS Studio, and I then have a different scene set up in OBS Studio, which then allows me to kind of just switch the scene and then still use the video feed from here, but now record the audio from the loop station instead of the Rode VideoMic Go 2.